Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we do have some severe weather to discuss today. There could be a severe weather outbreak, so we're going to talk all about that throughout this video. Now, before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. I'd also like to invite you to join our very exciting Discord server down below and our very exciting Facebook group down below, both in the pinned comment. Now for today's comment of the day, I want to know, have you had any tornado warnings this year? If so, how many? And I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. And if you've seen a tornado this year, that's kind of a bonus because that'd be kind of crazy too. Alright, now let's get into the categorical outlook for today. As you can see, we have a moderate risk, and you might be wondering, am I going to be live later? And I am planning on it, so hopefully I will be. There's also a chance that I won't be, but I am very much so planning on being live later today for this moderate risk. It is going to be later today, so we're going to have to see how that plays out. We have a very large slight risk, a large enhanced risk, and then also a actually surprisingly large moderate risk as well. There is room for a high risk, but there will not be a high risk. I'm just going to put that out there. Let's look at the wind outlook, and first off, I want you to keep in mind that the significant hatched area right there just means that there's a chance for even more significant wind than the surrounding regions. We have a 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location within the green area, a 15% chance within the yellow, a 30% chance there within the red, and a 45% chance within 25 miles of a given location within that pink region, which means basically there's a 50% chance of seeing damaging wind. That is crazy. What we're going to do is we're just going to move on and we're going to take a look at the hail and tornado outlooks in the same fashion, and then we're going to start talking about the temperature, dew point, cape, bulk shear, all sorts of other factors that we're going to need to pay attention to throughout the day today. Alright, so here's our hail outlook, and as you can see, much lower than the wind. It seems like today is mostly going to be a wind risk day, not very surprising for the type of storm we're going to be seeing. I'll show you guys that on the simulated radar. We'll talk a lot about that. We do have a hatched region for hail though, which means there is large hail that is possible, especially here on the western edge of the severe weather. So really, I think there's mostly going to be some storms earlier on that could have some hail and maybe some tornadoes as well. But really, the wind damage later on in the event is going to be the biggest risk. So we have a 5% chance within 25 miles of a given location within that green region, and 15% chance within that yellow, which is a pretty moderate risk. I don't want to downplay it, but compared to the wind risk, it's really just not as large of a risk here. Tornado risk, we have a general slight tornado risk, I would say. Here we have a 2% chance within the green area of a tornado within 25 miles of a given location. And then a 5% chance here for North Dakota, a bit of South Dakota, and then Minnesota and a bit of Wisconsin there as well. Pretty widespread area of a 5% chance risk, so I would say odds are better than not that we do see one or two tornadoes today. But really, it's not going to be some sort of massive tornado risk, I don't think. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move on, take a look at the temperature, dew point, cape, bulk shear, and then we're going to start getting into simulated radar and some other exciting things. Alright, so here's the actual temperature. As you can see, this is going to be the high temperature for today. Definitely going to be sufficient for severe weather. We have lower 90s, upper 80s. That's definitely going to be hot enough. And I looked at the simulated satellite. I'm not going to show that in this video, but it is clear and sunny, which means these storms are going to have just absolutely excellent conditions that they are moving into to develop further. So that's really bad news, obviously. We have dew points here in the lower 70s, upper 60s. Again, just completely sufficient for severe weather, especially those purple regions, which are going to be our 70-degree dew points or more. That's where we're definitely looking at very ripe conditions for severe weather development. So out in front of these storms where they're developing, there will be excellent conditions for severe weather to develop. And then let's look at that cape. And anywhere in the yellows, we have 2,000 to 3,000 cape, which is well above what is needed. We have 3,000 to 4,000 in the reds. We have 4,000 to 5,000 in those purples and pinks. And then kind of that tan area you can see in between the two Dakotas, we have 5,000 plus cape. We only need about 1,000 for severe weather. That's kind of the rule of thumb. So we have 5 times the amount basically required for severe weather to develop. These storms are going to have an extremely easy time developing and becoming very dangerous storms here. So we're going to need to watch all of those things very closely. Now quickly, let's also look at the bulk shear. And this is the reason we're not going to have a tornado outbreak. We only have maybe pinks in some regions here, but mostly just blues. That's on the lower scale of our bulk shear here. If we were in the purples and reds, we would maybe be looking at a potential tornado outbreak today. But really, there's just not very much bulk shear. And that's been kind of the theme this year. There's been a lot of big severe weather events that just do not have sufficient bulk shear at all. And that's why it's been actually kind of slowed down the tornado season recently. It's been mostly because of that reason. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move on and take a look at our simulated radar, take it hour by hour, and kind of just break down what's going on for you guys here. Now this is going to be approximately, I'm going to try to do the math. We're looking at Z time as well as trying to calculate what that would be for Central Time. So this is going to be a little bit difficult for me to just do these quick calculations here. But I would say this is approximately about 3 p.m. today. So in a few hours, actually, from the time I'm recording this video, we are going to start to already see storms developing there in North Dakota. And again, these earlier on ones are going to be the ones that are going to be more, I guess, favorable for hail. And also, I would say, actually, that these are going to be more favorable for tornadoes. But also, later on, we could have some more favorable storms for tornadoes as well. So this isn't going to be the only time where tornadoes are possible. But I think it could be the most favorable time. Let's go ahead and move towards what's probably going to be about 7 p.m. tonight, so later in the evening, maybe after dinner time, depending on when you eat dinner. We're going to see North Dakota. These storms have moved further eastward, and what you've noticed maybe is that they actually have become more linear, and they've kind of come together and become more lines of storms. These are going to be less favorable for hail and less favorable for tornadoes, usually, but also way more favorable for damaging winds. These storms that come together like this oftentimes create widespread wind damage and obviously severe weather outbreaks, especially for damaging wind. And really that seems to be the theme today that I'm looking at to be the biggest threat. Let's move towards maybe 10 p.m. here, and you can see that these storms are just going to explode. Remember where our high 5,000 plus CAPE amounts were located? They have just moved through those amounts, and as you can see, they completely blow up and become these very dangerous storms. Probably if I do go live, it's going to be sometime after dinner time, just because that's going to be the peak of these events. Now, the reason for that is usually I lose a lot of my steam when I'm doing the live streams after, I would say, 2, 3, 4 hours. So I don't want to start in the afternoon and then not really be 100% by the time we're reaching the peak. I want to start streaming around when the peak is happening. That's why I will probably hold off for quite a while before I actually go live here. So yes, we do have a very linear type storm mode here. This is going to be very sufficient for damaging wind. And I could see widespread wind damage. These storms are going to be extremely windy there, especially on the front edge of them. Tornadoes and hail, well, there's kind of a slight risk here, but really nothing crazy, but there's a very high chance for wind damage. So today is going to be much defined by how much wind damage we can see in these areas. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move on to about 1 a.m. Tonight and move forward from that point. And what we're going to see is these are going to mostly move into the state of Minnesota. All right, now here we are taking a look at 1 a.m. and as you can see, they have done so. They've moved into Minnesota for the most part, South Dakota as well. And you can see we still have a well-defined area of a very linear type of thunderstorm here that looks very potent. So the wind damage is going to continue to a certain point late tonight. It's really hard to say exactly when. As we move towards about maybe 4 a.m., you can see it has become less linear and more scattered around. This is going to really diminish some of that wind risk and maybe just stay about the same as far as hail and tornado risk, because this will be more of a scattered severe weather event as we reach later and later into the night and further eastward and further southward there in Minnesota and portions of northern Wisconsin as well. So really what I'm looking for is sometime between 1 and about 5 a.m. we're going to see these storms become a less defined line of storms, and they're going to break up for the most part and become more of a scattered severe weather event. When that switch happens, we're going to go from a widespread severe weather event to more of just scattered. So that's a big transition point. And I would say just side on the assumption that we might just see this one stay linear and continue with the wind damage. But also, hopefully, this one will dissipate pretty early on and you know, closer to 1 a.m. and we won't see as much impacts to portions of Minnesota. But really, at this point, it could swing either way. Now, as a bonus, let's just go ahead and take a look at that significant tornado parameter quickly. And the reason I want to show this is actually because, surprisingly, it's in the more moderate range there, the reds to the purples, which is leading me to believe that if we do see any tornadoes today, especially later on in this storm's or this event for severe weather, I think that we could have some larger tornadoes if they happen to develop, which would be something we definitely need to watch. Obviously, when we're in a linear storm mode, we don't really necessarily look at long-lived tornadoes typically, but I am going to be on the lookout for a slight risk of that occurring. So if you do live in these regions, also really pay attention, make sure you don't have tornado warnings, because just because we don't have bulk shear doesn't mean it's not possible. So I am on the lookout for potential damaging tornadoes throughout the day today, but really it's not the biggest feature here of this event. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what is your favorite breakfast food? I know it's a very off-topic question, but Florida Herper said, eggs are my favorite breakfast food because they are filled with nutrients and easy to cook, and I can't agree anymore. I used to be really big into eating a ton of protein and working out, so I would eat a ton of eggs, and the more you eat them, the more you don't like them typically, but they are certainly very easy to cook, and I did love that about them. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.